At 25, a hard leg day cost you a day and a half of soreness. At 40, that same workout can cost you 4 days, and it's not because you trained harder. Something in your body's recovery system has fundamentally changed. And most men respond to it by doing the one thing that makes it worse, pushing through exactly like they used to. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why recovery slows after 35, why training the way you used to is quietly working against you, and how to restructure your training so it builds you up instead of breaking you down. Here's what we're covering. First, the actual biological systems behind slower recovery, and why this isn't in your head. Second, why training with the same frequency and intensity you used at 25 doesn't just fail to work as well after 35, it can actively set you back. And third, the specific way to restructure your training so you keep making progress without digging a recovery hole you can't climb out of. Let's start with what's actually happening inside your body. Recovery isn't one process. It's 4 separate systems working together, and each one changes after 35. The first is hormonal. Testosterone and growth hormone both play a direct role in tissue repair, and both decline gradually starting in your mid-30s. Less of the hormonal signal that drives repair means repair simply happens slower. The second is muscle protein synthesis, the same rebuilding process we covered in the protein video. It becomes less responsive with age, a phenomenon called anabolic resistance. That means the actual rebuilding of muscle tissue after a hard session takes longer to complete, not just to feel finished. The third is connective tissue, your tendons and ligaments. Collagen turnover, the process that repairs and strengthens these tissues, slows with age. Muscle tends to recover faster than tendon even in your 20s, and that gap widens after 35, which is a big part of why nagging tendon and joint issues become more common at this age. The fourth is inflammation resolution. Some inflammation after training is normal. It's part of how your body signals repair. But the process that resolves that inflammation and returns tissue to baseline becomes less efficient with age, a pattern researchers sometimes call inflammaging. Low-grade inflammation lingers longer instead of resolving cleanly. 4 systems, all slower, all working against you at the same time. On their own, none of these is dramatic, but most men aren't dealing with them individually. They're dealing with all 4 at once, while still training like none of them exist. Here's the trap. Training itself doesn't build you up. Training creates a stimulus, a controlled amount of damage. Recovery is what actually builds you up, by repairing that damage and adapting to it. If recovery keeps pace with training, you get stronger, fitter, more resilient over time. If recovery falls behind, the damage accumulates faster than it's repaired, even if every individual workout looks identical to the one before it. In your 20s, your recovery capacity was large enough that this gap rarely showed up. You could train hard 5 or 6 days a week, sleep poorly, eat inconsistently, and still adapt and improve. After 35, with all 4 recovery systems running slower, that same schedule doesn't leave enough room for repair to catch up. The gap between stimulus and recovery widens week over week, even though nothing about your effort has changed. It shows up as 3 things: plateaued or declining strength despite consistent training, nagging joint and tendon pain that never fully resolves between sessions, and a general sense of being run down, poor sleep, low motivation, elevated resting heart rate that most men blame on stress or age rather than on under-recovered training. This is why so many men over 35 feel like they're training just as hard as ever and getting weaker results. They're not imagining it. The training didn't stop working. The recovery underneath it did. So if pushing through the same way doesn't work anymore, what does? Training around slower recovery doesn't mean training less hard. It means training smarter about how that effort is distributed. Principle 1. Reduce frequency on the same muscle group, not overall training volume. Where you might have trained the same muscle group hard 3 times a week in your 20s, giving each muscle group 48 to 72 hours before hitting it again gives connective tissue and protein synthesis the extra time they now need to catch up. You can still train just as many days. Just distribute which muscles you're hitting on which day. Principle 2. Build in a deload every 4 to 6 weeks. A deload is a planned week of reduced intensity or volume, not a week off entirely. This is where the inflammation and connective tissue repair that have been lagging behind actually get a chance to fully catch up. Skipping this is one of the most common reasons men over 35 get stuck in a cycle of nagging injuries. Principle 3. Treat sleep and protein as part of the training program, not separate from it. Most tissue repair and most of the hormonal signal that drives it happens during sleep. Cutting sleep short is functionally the same as skipping a recovery day you didn't know you were skipping. And as covered in the protein video, adequate protein intake is what actually supplies the raw material for the repair your body is trying to do. Without it, more of the recovery systems we discussed stay backed up. Principle 4. Use soreness and joint feedback as data, not something to push through. Lingering soreness past 72 hours or joint discomfort that doesn't fully settle before your next session is your connective tissue telling you it hasn't caught up yet. Adjusting that day's intensity down in response isn't weakness. It's the single most effective way to stay consistent long-term instead of getting sidelined by an overuse injury. So what does this actually look like across a real week of training? Here's how to put all of this into a structure you can actually follow. Step 1. Space out training per muscle group across the week. Aim for 48 to 72 hours before hitting the same muscle group with hard, direct work again. A simple upper-lower or push-pull legs split spread across 4 to 5 training days naturally builds this spacing in without you having to think about it session to session. If you train the same muscles daily right now, this single change is the highest leverage adjustment you can make. Step 2. Schedule a deload every 4th or 5th week. Mark it on the calendar in advance, rather than waiting until you're beat up to take it. During that week, keep the same exercises but drop the working weight by 30 to 40% or cut your sets roughly in half. This isn't lost progress. It's the week that lets the previous month's progress actually consolidate. Step 3. Protect a consistent sleep window and hit your protein target. Treat 7 to 8 hours of sleep as a non-negotiable part of the training plan, especially the 2 nights following your hardest sessions. Pair this with the protein target from the earlier video. The raw material for repair needs to be there for the extra sleep and reduced frequency to actually pay off. Step 4. Run a simple weekly check-in. Before each week's first hard session, ask 3 questions. Is soreness from last week fully gone? Is any joint or tendon still bothering you? And is your motivation to train normal or noticeably low? 2 or more no's is a signal to ease that week's intensity rather than push through it. Catching this early is what prevents small issues from becoming injuries that force weeks off entirely. So let's go back to where we started. At 25, that leg day cost you a day and a half. At 40, it can cost you 4. Now you know why. Slower hormonal signaling, reduced protein synthesis efficiency, slower connective tissue repair, and inflammation that lingers longer than it used to. None of that means you have to train less hard. It means the training that actually works for you now looks different than it did at 25. Spaced out, deloaded on a schedule, and built on top of real sleep and real protein instead of stacked on top of nothing. The men who keep getting stronger after 35 aren't the ones who ignore recovery and grind through it. They're the ones who train it as deliberately as they train everything else. Space it out, deload on schedule. Protect your sleep and your protein. Listen to the feedback your body is already giving you. That's the difference between training that builds you up and training that quietly wears you down. If this video helped you understand things a bit clearer, I appreciate you taking the time to watch it. What I focus on here is simple, realistic approaches that middle-aged men can actually stick to, because that's what gets real results. If that's something you're working on, you can stick around for more.